Jason's got a date with a Dream Master. Here's your look at the NECA Toys Freddy vs. Jason Reissue Ultimate Jason Voorhees. Brought by Freddy Krueger to terrorize the residents of Springwood, Jason begins his murderous rampage again. But when Jason doesn't step aside for Freddy, a terrified town is caught in the middle of an epic face-off. This NECA Ultimate Jason Voorhees Freddy vs. Jason figure is even more sizable than other Ultimate Jasons, as appropriate for a horror showdown on the movie's scale. He comes with 3 removable masks, 2 machetes, regular and bloody, teddy bear, and fire effect that can attach to either machete to recreate a final blistering battle. Collector-friendly window box packaging with open flap. The first thing I figured we would do is actually figure out how tall Jason Voorhees stands. And then, of course, we'll get some size comparisons out of the way as well. Taking, though, the tape measure right to the very top of Jason's head, you're looking at the figure of Jason from Freddy vs. Jason, standing about 7.5 inches in height, or he's about 19 centimeters tall. And, of course, if this is going to be a review of a reissue, then the best way to obviously do that is to bring in the original figure so you can see the difference between the two. Most of it obviously is just cosmetic. Different paint has been applied to both the figures, but you can see maybe right away there is some considerable difference between the shirts and the undershirts that Jason is wearing. There's also a few little other changes that we'll also point out as well, but mold-wise, it seems to be the exact same figure. They haven't done anything different between the two. And then to show you how this Jason towers over other Jasons, I'm going to also bring in, speaking of reissues, here's what he looks like with the reissue Part 4 final chapter Jason Voorhees that we've also looked at here on the channel. I also want to get this out of the way as well. Here's the box that comes included with the reissue Jason Voorhees. I'm going to move this Jason just out of the way, or maybe put him in the center. And this is the one that came included with the original Jason Voorhees. Boxes are the same. You may say, if anything, the Jason's picture here on the front is slightly a little bit more blurrier on the reissue. But the more important thing is, of course, to show you guys, I wanted to make sure to include this. Just again, move Jason out of the way here. The box on the top is the original lot production number, which is 367N040819. The one on the bottom, however, though, is the reissue, 367N083121. The number, of course, you're probably the most interested to look at is the last 5 digits, 40819. Down below, 83121. 83121 is the production number for the new Jason Voorhees if you're looking to track one down. Anyways, let's have a look at the accessories that come included with the figure. First, the figure comes included with 2 machetes, not just 1, but 2. Right away, I could tell you that the difference of the machetes is notable. I mean, here's the bloodied one. We're going to look at that maybe in a second, but I'm going to bring in the machete that came included with the original Jason Voorhees, if I can actually grab it. You can see, like, the paint work. The one on the bottom is the original machete. Handle-wise, it's a little bit darker of a handle, but blade-wise, the newer one seems to do things better. The bottom one had more noticeable streaks from basically the paintbrush that streaked across the plastic. The one on the top, though, the brush strokes are a little bit more subtle, and it looks a little bit more closer to resembling metal. Exact same blades, though. I want to make sure I keep these in proper order so I'm not putting back, when we're done with all these reviews, I don't put back the wrong accessory with the wrong figure. Anyways, here's the bloodied version of the machete. And just to show you what it looked like with the original machete, they also came included with this figure. Yeah, again, like, the paint is so much nicer on the blade here. It looks like an old machete. Jason ain't pulling out some brand new machete clean from the drawer that he's going to start using to slash. He's got like an old machete. And I think fittingly, this one should look also old. Now, the blood down below here, I'm going to bring in the one that came included with the original release again. And this is, again, where you're going to really start seeing differences made. Improvements on paint. The one down below, while there's a lot more of the red, it looks almost like it's just been painted on. This looks like Jason would have actually plunged this into someone's body, drew it out, and it would have smeared across the blade. What a horrible way to describe that. The one on the bottom, though, has a lot more silver added to the plastic, but the paint for the red is a lot more, well, painted. It doesn't look as much like blood to me. Handle-wise, The one on the bottom, if I can get them straight together here, the one also, the original one, had a slightly shinier handle. It's a little bit more dull here on the newer release, Jason Voorhees. So again, I think the differences are much more improved upon on the newer released accessories for the machetes. On to now teddy bears. Not something we necessarily see in the movie. I think there was going to be a thrown away scene. At one point, I think was shot that Jason had a teddy bear. What we get here for the teddy bear is still the same mold that we got with the original one, although you can see the colors a little bit more muted. The browner is definitely a lot brighter of brown when it came to the original released teddy bear, you can see. This teddy bear has a much more darker or chestnut brown coloring. The stitches seem to be the same. You can see all the stitches that are coming out, even like the little batting that's coming out the bottom of his feet, are identical, but it's just a color preference. If you prefer to have the brighter brown, you can also even mix and match these accessories as well. Nobody's committing you to the idea that just because you pick up the reissue, you have to display Jason with all those accessories. If you prefer the brighter brown bear, with a whole lot of bees, then go that route instead. Face-wise, though, it doesn't look like the paint's any bit sharper. It's just a different type of brown that they've used. Move those out of the way. The figure also comes included with fire. Now, again, to bring the fire in that came included with the original one had a lot more yellow to it. It also seemed as well that it seemed a more clouded type of clear plastic. The one that comes included with the newer one is a more clearer plastic. And it seems that like the transitioning between the bright, first of all, this yellow is a lot brighter than the yellow we get here. Here it's a much softer yellow. And the oranges are also a lot more muted as well. It's a very, almost more pastel color that they used for the original flame. The newer flame, I think, does things better. And it works the exact same way. You're going to take either one of the machete. I like to really display it with the clean machete myself. And then you just literally, there's a little slot here on the side. You just take the machete blade and slide it up the top. Now, you can have it either way, really. I prefer myself, because of course if it's engulfed in flames, Jason's going to be swinging the machete this way, so the flames should then go behind it. If you prefer to have it the other way, I mean, you can do whatever you want with your collection. You can have it also this way as well, where the blade is on the same side as the flames. Either way, you can do either way if you want. I prefer, again, having it displayed like that. Put that to the side. And then the last of the accessories, again, I'm really disappointed with the opportunity to have a reissue like this. Again, all of it is just cosmetic. It's just paint differences. But I really wish there could have been an opportunity that they could have re-released this figure again with a removable Freddy head sculpt. One of which that Freddy could have actually, or Jason could have been holding in his hand as an actual accessory. We got it before when it came with the Freddy vs. Jason 2-pack. We haven't gotten it since. And I hope at some point we do get it. Maybe, you never know, we might get ourselves an ultimate Freddy Krueger from Freddy vs. Jason that may include the severed head that Jason could carry around in his hand. But I really wish that they could have included that in the first place. On to now the hockey masks. Now again, this is a big thing that's changed here. I'm going to look first with the scratched head. And don't worry, we're going to obviously look at the default head as well. There's changes that have been made to that as well. But this is the scratched up Freddy'd mask. You can see right there. All the carved in blade marks etched into the plastic of the mask itself. And this is the original one. I almost think that I would say that the original one did things just a little bit better. The straps are the same. The plastic, though, is a little bit noticeably lighter on the original one than what we get with the reissue. The scratches also seem to be a little bit more consistent, I would say, on the original one, where it looks like they're all following the same path. This one just seems like the scratches are all over the place. Not much different, really, though, with these, but I think I would almost award it to the original mask as being the better of the two. Here's where the real changes come, and that's the blood-soaked mask. This is the one that we get with the original. Well, this is the one we get with the reissue. Let me bring in the one that comes with the original one. Now, you can see, first of all, the blood, there's a lot more of it on the reissue than what we get with the original one. But also, too, the blood is a lot darker. It's shinier, too, as well. The mask underneath looks like it's the same color. Maybe, perhaps, if anything, it might seem just a little bit darker in this one. But I gotta say, like, I love the coloring of the blood on the newer one than on the original one. The original one is a little bit more, not as generous with the blood. If you prefer maybe your hockey mask maybe with not as much blood on it, then maybe this is the better route to go. But I think that in this case, this is the better looking hockey mask. Not only with a lot more blood on it, but the darker blood that they've also used is better than I think the blood that they used on the original mask. My own personal opinion. Then on to Jason's actual mask, the one that's on the figure right now. I'm going to go ahead and pick the figure up, and for this, we're going to slide him over a little bit. and bring in the original Jason Voorhees mask. Right away, you may be able to see that they've used a darker, let me just bring them a little bit closer together here. They've used a darker beige here for the newer Jason mask than what the original one had. The original one had more of a paler beige coloring. The mask mold seems to be the same. One thing also I did notice with the newer mask, I'm going to try to hold the both together so I can actually show you here. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a mold line right there. It almost looks as if there's a hair on the plastic. You see right there, it's just below the bottom chevron, and it comes all the way up. I'm trying to get my finger out of the way so you can actually see it. There's a little mold line that goes all the way up to the top. It doesn't seem to be as much here on the original one, but for some reason it's on the newer one. It's actually on both sides, I've noticed too. In this case, again, I have to almost give it to the reissue of having the better looking mask. Same shape, better color though. Here's one other thing that also does change between the two figures. I'm going to go ahead and remove the masks right now. I always joke that the Jason face underneath always looks like a walnut. And I got to say, nothing has changed, whether it's the reissue or not. Here's the reissue Jason face without the mask. Does it not look like a walnut to you? It's not one of the prettiest looking Jasons. Not that Jason has ever had a pretty face, but it's definitely one of the worst I've always felt. It looks very much like a walnut. The hair, you can see what little he has just is draping out the bottom or behind his ear. Let me go ahead and remove the one that came included for the original one. Just put that to the side. Now, same head sculpt, but there's a lot more of a darker black that's added to the face. This one had it pulled back a little bit. It actually kind of comes across more like a gray than it does a black. But because it's so close to a color as the brown, it looks like it's just a very faded looking face. I got to say, like the feature-wise on Jason, whether I like this face sculpt or not, which I don't, I really don't. Like the darker black does work wonders for the brain. Well, same head, but the paint does wonders to make the head face features stand out a little bit better. You can see again, like the side of his face, much darker looking paint applied here to the face sculpt here. Again, I don't really like either one of the heads, but if I had to give it to anything, I would give it to the reissue for having darker contrasting colors and making the face, again, the eyes, the nose, and the mouth standing out a lot better. Then onto the actual body. Now, while the jacket is very close, I would be almost hard-pressed to see a difference between the two. Some of the lighter colors that you can see are actually sticking out from the jacket. I guess that's the batting from the jacket. Seems to stand out better here in the new one than what we get with the original one. There's a little more of the darker gray happening here than what we got with the first figure. But really where the differences are the most is with the shirt that he's wearing underneath. The original one actually approached it with a darker gray, with a blue undershirt underneath. I didn't really like the blue undershirt underneath. What they've done instead, though, with the reissue, is they've gone a lighter gray for the shirt that he wears underneath the jacket, but then his undershirt is actually a black instead of the blue. You can tell me down below which you prefer, but I actually like the lighter gray myself with the dark black undershirt than I do like the darker gray with the blue shirt underneath. Both of the shirts actually do stick out. The ripped, torn shirt actually does bag out a bit from the bottom of his body, or like the torso of his body. So even if you tilt the figure up, you can kind of see the coloring of his body underneath that. Legs are also something that does change between the two figures. You can see with the reissue, it's a much shinier looking paint that they've applied. They've also added a little bit of also brown, whereas just basically the original one had approached it with a more matte black. It looked okay, but I gotta say, like, it looks so much nicer with the shinier. I mean, Jason's walking around. He's likely getting wet and muddy. His pants should really convey that. I like that they've actually made the pants a lot shinier and added the much appreciated brown in there as well. Boots is also something that they've added just a little bit of extra color. They've added blue. I think they might have just rather stuck with the black instead. This time around, I actually might have to say that the original one did it a little bit better by just keeping the boots black. The boots, granted, are shinier on the reissue, but I don't think it necessarily needed the blue wash over top of it. See what I mean? There's a lot of difference really between the two figures from one time of releasing it to what we get right now. Jackets, again, about the same, but it's the shirts and stuff underneath that really make the big difference. Okay, now we can retire this one. We'll put him over to the side. Let's go ahead and maybe what we'll do is we'll put the head sculpt on, the mask sculpt. That actually does have the scratched face. That's kind of the way he's going to look at the end of the movie. Carefully take the strap and just fit it over top of his head. You really don't want to stretch it too far. And we just want to make sure it's far enough down. There we go. But yeah, that looks so much nicer. The colorings, like I said, for the gray here, work much better, I find, to have using the lighter gray. And the black undershirt doesn't stand out like a sore thumb. Jason already looks like a sore thumb, literally. I don't think he needed to have the blue undershirt underneath. So I think they definitely fixed it in that department. I know we've already had a look at this figure, but just one last time to show you guys the detail work that NECA did put into this. Whether you like hair or not on your Jason does have a little bit of it, again, behind his back, or behind his head, I should say. Nice little cracks and stuff that they've added to the top of the forehead. There's no disputing the fact that this Jason is long since dead. Jacket looks good. Again, I like Jason with a long jacket. I mean, I prefer still Jason with a shirt, but I think like having him wearing the jacket, which is something I also carried over to the remake, worked pretty good for the character. Like, it's torn, it's tattered. You can see all little rips and stuff at the bottom of the jacket there. Again, I'm guessing this is just a batting from inside the jacket now starting to stick out. He's actually got that also in his sleeves here as well. And one big amount of it actually on this side of his sleeve, which does make his one arm look a little bit clunkier just because he's got so much extra molding on this one side. I wish they could have actually had this as more of a torn piece that just could have dangled off his arm and not looking like it's just part of the same mold. We didn't really even look at the hands, but like the hands, just going to get to bring back in the figure. I just finished saying I retired him, but bringing back in the other figure, you can see like the hands are exactly the same. So there's nothing really different in that department. But I'm really liking the cosmetic changes that they've made for this reissue Jason. Again, one last time to show you guys the detail work for the pants, torn and tattered. These pants he's had for a very long time. I can't imagine he's washing them either. Maybe he just walks out into the swampy waters, clean, he's good, he's done, he's ready to start killing again. For the articulation on this figure, it's going to be exactly the same as the one we looked at before. So the head is going to be on a ball joint. Now, it's not so much a ball joint here. It's not going to be where the head is a separate piece from the neck. The neck is actually the thing that's doing all the work. So the ball joint allows the head to go up, down, back, and forth, and rotate it. Just when you are rotating it, though, be careful that you're not going to pull it against the strap here, just for the risk that you could break it off the mask. Shoulders do come out. I would be safe to say a 90-degree angle bend. Yeah, about a 90-degree angle bend. Arms do rotate also all the way around. He does have only a single hinge on the elbow, but it allows at least the forearm to rotate back and forth, and the hands also rotate all the way around. Upper torso is on a ball joint because he has so much spacage. I know that's not really a word, but because he has so much gap space between the shirt and the torso underneath, it really does allow the figure to do a lot more movement when the upper torso. Legs do split. They seem to be on ratcheted joints also as well. You can bring the legs forward. You can bring the legs back. There's a mild, very mild swivel at the top of the thigh. Only a single hinge on the knee like the elbow, but it does allow at least the leg to rotate back and forth. And again, if you like the stilted boots on Jason to look like Frankenstein's monster, that's one of the things also as well for this particular Jason design. I thought it was ridiculous. He was already tall. He didn't necessarily need to have stilted boots, but that's something they decided to add there as well. He does have an ankle pivot back and forth, and you can also move it up and down as well. You know, again, like with a lot of these reissues, some have said, well, why do you pick up reissues? I think reissues, first of all, is always a good opportunity for somebody now getting into collecting NECA figures to get the best offer that they had released. You could try to, sure, track one down over on eBay. But I think if you were to track down one on eBay, you're still then buying old stock figures. I think, if anything, if you have the opportunity and get a newer version of that figure, then why not pick it up? I've also just put on the scratched mask there on Jason, so again, you can see the difference between the two. Again, I think what subtler differences have been added to this one that wasn't already on this one are enough to, I think, make the Jason figure now with the reissue be quite a lot better, I feel at least. The changes are necessary. I think they have made the improvements on like the machete, the masks, especially the bloody mask is the best of the batch. And again, like when it comes to like looking at the cosmetics that they've added to, again, it's all only just paint applications. But I think the reissue changes are so much more noticeable than what we got with the one before. And because it didn't actually show you in the review, you can take the teddy bear and fit it into the wider grip that Jason has on the other side of his body. In fact, that hand is really only designed to hold the teddy bear. It doesn't hold a machete. It doesn't hold, well, that's really the only accessory that he has is two types of machetes. That hand, even though I think it's on the wrong side, would also have been good to hold Freddy's head. Something, again, a missed opportunity that they didn't include it first with the original figure and didn't include it again with the reissue either. I understand that this is just a production reissue in the sense that they've just updated the paint, which is definitely noticeable here on the figure. There wasn't an opportunity for them to add any extra accessories. It's only just an updated model. Still, though, I hope at some point, considering we already have now a Jason Voorhees from Freddy vs. Jason, you got to have the person he's fighting included in there as well. at some point down the road, I can only hope that NECA does release a Freddy vs. Jason Freddy Krueger. I don't know whether they still have the licensing available for the Nightmare on Elm Street, but if they do, please, NECA, at some point, could you release a Freddy vs. Jason Freddy Krueger to go along with the Jason Voorhees we already have now twice, considering this is the reissue. Now, again, some have said, well, why do you bother picking up the reissue if you already have the original figure? Again, I always say, if you get the chance, try to get the newer figures because they always have the better improved upon paint. It seems to be now a sickness that I have, where I go over to, in fact, I actually picked up this figure over on Entertainment Earth, but I always tend to go over to Entertainment Earth. I go to the hot off the truck option, which is at like the top corner of their page, and you can check out the things that just literally came off the truck, like hot off the truck, that goes now into their warehouse. If you happen to see a new NECA release over there, it's safe to assume that that's not old stock, that they're restocking the stuff that just came from their factory. And that's what exactly I did with the Jason Voorhees. Having the one I already had before from several years ago, I wanted to update the Jason. And again, the best way to do that is go to a site that you know they just restocked it. Because if not, if you go to places like eBay, or you go to local listing stores, or some like close comic book store, you have to then really be able to look at that and know exactly what the original figure looked like. The best advice I could honestly make for anyone that's now into collecting new NECA figures, or somebody like myself that wants to get an updated version of said figure, check online sites like Entertainment Earth, for example, that have hot off the truck or just recently restocked. And that usually is your telltale sign that you're probably going to be getting a better painted NECA figure. Not all the time, but most of the times I've done this, I've actually been pretty successful with getting a better looking figure. Now, let me know down below in the comments section, do you think this reissue Jason looks marginally different or better than the original Jason we looked at before? Or is it enough that you're happy just to keep the original figure? Let me know down below in the comments section. And certainly as well, if you enjoyed this video, hit it with a like. If you're loving the content you're seeing and do like the idea that we actually have a look at reissues here on this channel, I want to make sure as well that I show you guys the lot numbers too, the factory numbers of when these were produced, so that if you are trying to track them down, you can in fact even ask the place, can you provide me the lot number or the factory production number, and then compare it maybe with this video so you know exactly which Jason Voorhees that you're getting. But would you guys certainly like to see more of these reissue videos? Let me know down below in the comments section. And again, as well, if you are new here, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. Yes, make sure you turn on the bell notification. Yeah. All the same stuff we always say in these videos, but it does certainly help you guys to know when new videos are going to be popping up here on this channel. And lots more NECA videos are going to be coming to this channel. So you want to make sure that, yes, you're not missing out on anything. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.